the comment that was made was, wow, so what this really shows us is both firms are basically the same. And so we should really now, and he literally said this, which was wonderful. So really what you're saying, Frank, is we should really be focusing on culture and fit and the other ancillary things, not the money. And I was like 100%.
Welcome to Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa, brought to you by Elite Consulting Partners. It's the only podcast offering unfiltered guidance and the direct advice for all things concerning financial advisors, RIAs, and the practitioners in the wealth management business. And now, welcome to the show.
Hey everybody, welcome to Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa. I am your host, Frank LaRosa, obviously. And I'm here with my co-host, my lovely co-host, Stacey. Frank, what's going on?
I'm happy to be back, as always.
You all good? You got
I'm good.
Got the giggles out?
I got the giggles out, the yawns out.
Got the giggles and the yawns out. I guess I'm not all that dynamic today.
That'll be in the bloopers version, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. Hey, listen, so thanks for joining us. Today I'm really excited to talk about something that's sort of near and dear to my heart, and that is Excel spreadsheets. No, not really, but sort of. Today we're going to talk about something that we go through with our clients that really helps them sort of make decisions in one area of this transition process that they go through. And really what we're trying to do here is help people not to focus on the wrong things, right? And quite simply, when we work with advisors, they spend entirely too much time focused on the economics of one firm over another firm, right? Meaning, so a W-2 firm over another W-2 firm, or an independent broker-dealer over another independent broker-dealer, and the economic component. This is not going to be a conversation about transition deal. We'll touch on that a little bit. But one of the things that we do for our clients is we help a client identify when they're down to two or three different firms. We help them look through the actual P&L, the running of the business, and what's their net number going to be. We did a podcast a while back. It was called it's all about the net, right? And that is, not every payout means the same thing in terms of the net, right? So a 90% or 92% payout at one firm compared to an 85% payout at another firm may actually result in the same net number. And so, but we find too many advisors get caught up in those details. And ultimately, what I have found in running these, what we call a pro forma, which is a fairly robust spreadsheet that over the last, I will say, 10 years, I've honed by taking pro formas from every firm that gives a client a pro forma, right? And they're all different. Every firm has a different version of what their pro forma looks like for you as an advisor on their platform. And over the years, what I found is they're not all accurate. Not that they're misleading. On occasion, I've seen a couple that I felt were misleading. But it's their version based on your practice on their platform. What we've done is we've created sort of a generic model where I can take firm A and firm B, who run different platform models, put them into one spreadsheet, and then show an advisor the comparative difference in the net dollars, which is what you care about.
Because sometimes, and here's a little question for you off the cuff.
Okay.
Aren't there times where an 86% payout could end up being better than a 92%
All the time.
payout? So how
All
so?
the time.
Maybe tell everybody.
Right? Because, as an example, some firms they quote your payout, so you're going to get a 95% payout. I'm just making up a number, right? 92% payout, right? And then they say, well, and we have a 8 basis point platform fee. What they don't tell you is the 8 basis points comes out before the 92%, right? Versus some firms may give you an 88% payout, and the platform fee, the admin fee, comes out after the 88%, right? Or then you get into the weeds. Again, this is what we're trying to avoid here. You get into the weeds where one firm's charging $2,000 for E&O, on 5 advisors, and another firm's charging $5,000 on E&O for 5 advisors. So that stuff adds up over time, right? What we do is we basically try to levelize the playing field. And what I have found, and this sort of just, I did one the other day for a, let's call it, for argument's sake, just for simple math, a $3 million team. And it was a little bit less than $3 million, maybe $2.5 million. And there was 3 advisors, right? And what I found was the net difference between the 2 firms, and it was basically the 2 largest independent broker-dealers. You can surmise what those 2 firms were, right? The net difference pre-tax, because it's both independent, so we weren't comparing taxes because it's going to be the same, right? But the net difference was $100,000 for the year on a $2.5 million practice, right? So it's $100,000 divided by 3 advisors.
So
right?
$30,000 each.
So
$33,000 each.
Roughly $33,000 each, give or take. Do the math, whatever, right? Before taxes. So what I was trying to explain to them was, so if it's 30, basically it came out to about $30,000 each for the year, which ultimately means, after taxes, how much are you really talking about, right? And I see this over and over again. It was a nominal amount of money compared to how much more money they were going to be making because they were coming from a wirehouse firm, right? So their income was going to be going up so much more that it wasn't going to matter, but they were getting caught up in comparing one firm after another. So it's like, guys, let me just run the math for you, right? And the relief that they had when I showed them, you guys are splitting hairs over how much you're not squabbling about, because they weren't like they were just trying to get their arms around it. The comment that was made was, wow, so what this really shows us is both firms are basically the same, and so we should really now, and he literally said this, which was wonderful. So really what you're saying, Frank, is we should really be focusing on culture and fit and the other ancillary things, not the money. And I was like 100%, right? And that's the point. And what I have found in doing, I don't know, I won't say hundreds of them, but I've done a lot of them, dozens and dozens and dozens of these. What I found is 80% of the time, when you're comparing an apple and an apple, right? Meaning an independent broker-dealer to another independent broker-dealer. Or if I'm comparing one RIA to another RIA. Or a W-2 shop to another W-2 shop. What I found is 80% of the time, it's a wash. Because there's only 100 cents in the dollar, right? You've heard that expression, right?
100 cents.
So it's like in Moneyball. What are we talking about here, right? I get them to the point where they realize we're splitting hairs a percentage or 2 in either direction, right? It's not even a percentage or 2. It's like a few $1,000s one way or another. And I've seen, and we've seen, so many advisors waste mental time and energy in worrying about, well, what's the ticket charge? This firm pays a ticket charge. This firm doesn't have a ticket charge. One firm, we have a situation where, in this particular situation, right, where now what you have to get in, what we put into that is, well, then the transition bonus, right, makes a difference. But what we've done is, in our models, is we'll actually show an advisor the rolling difference. So not just an annual difference, but the rolling difference of being at firm A versus being at firm B. What I mean by rolling difference is, let's say you have one firm that is their transition money is $300,000 more, right? But the other firm that gives lesser money, you're making, I'm just simple math, you're making $50,000 a year more at the other firm. So after 6 years, you've made up the difference in the upfront dollars, right? But if you plan on staying at that firm for the rest of your career, that's a better deal, right? Because you're making more money over a longer period of time. And it's hard to understand that conceptually. So we run these models, these pro formas that show you the money, right? Show me the money.
Show me the money.
That we show the money, because the reason why we're doing this is to help you move the ball forward so that make this transition process, which can be time consuming, a little bit painful, but it's just it can be mentally exhausting if you do it the wrong way. So what we try to do is just take this one particular piece off the table and understand, listen, it's going to be whatever it's going to be. It's going to be a wash, right? Let's focus on the other things that are more important. Cultural fit, how well do you get along with the compliance people? The marketing aspect, can you market in your brand? Which firm are you going to be able to grow your business faster at? So I wanted to do this, and I'm really, it's a sort of as a business owner, I look at numbers all the time, and I love to understand numbers and direction, and I just, it's painful when I talk to an advisor and they're wasting all this time on what one firm over another firm because one firm has a ticket charge and one firm doesn't, right?
One thing I just want to kind of bring up that is sort of a value add on why you would continue working with someone like us is for some teams, technology is more important.
Yeah.
For other teams, maybe having their assistants compensated more handsomely is more important. So there are components of the line items within the pro forma that we could spend more time with the advisor talking about and maybe negotiating. Maybe it's, I don't want to say free technology for 6 months, but there's certain areas within those line items that we could spend some time. It really depends on what the team puts emphasis on.
Right.
We're really big into technology where other teams could care less. So the firm, putting their best foot forward to offset some of those expenses might be important for some. Might be. I know I'm kind of splitting hairs here, but this is really important.
This is where the value comes in.
Right.
When we run these exercises. Correct. It highlights to you as the advisor the areas that you should be paying attention to, right? I'll give you an example. So this firm that we're talking to, right? The upfront transition dollars, I'll just say firm A, are about $300,000 to $400,000 more upfront. But out of that money, the advisor has to pay all their ACAT fees, right? Which we estimate to be about $100,000, right? And versus the other firm that again is offering them a little bit less money. Let's call it $300,000 for this conversation, right? But is paying all their ACAT fees. So you have to take that into consideration because that's a factor, right? But again, ultimately, that's where we get down to what's the real difference, and I feel like it's an obligation of ours to have those conversations. We are happy to do those for our clients because it helps them move through the process and understand what really matters. Right. Money aside. It also gives more so for the W-2 types of advisors. It also gives you a glimpse into getting comfortable with what things really cost. Right. You have a practice and you're running a $2 million practice at a wirehouse firm, doesn't matter the firm, right? And the firm's paying for one of your assistants or two of your assistants, and you're gonna go independent. Now you're gonna have to pay for them, and all of a sudden you see a $150,000 line item on your P&L, and you're gonna have a heart attack, right? Right? You have to get comfortable with that, and those are the kinds of things that we work through. Maybe you need a virtual assistant instead of two full-timers or whatever it is, right? But ultimately, the message here that I really want to get across is 80% of the time we run these models, these pro formas for our clients. The difference between firm A and firm B, all things being equal, is a wash, is a negligible amount of money to waste your time on. I'm not saying don't go through the process to understand it, but I've seen too many advisors where they know they want to leave, and the process to leave takes twice as long because they want to get into the minutia of these deals and basically try to thread the needle on the absolute perfect deal, right? And there's an expression that 80% today, an 80% decision today is better than a 100% decision tomorrow, and it's the same thing, right? Just get it. It's like horseshoes and hand grenades, or like you said, get it. You get it within 2 feet of the
2 feet of the hole.
2 feet of the hole, right? I went through this with a close friend of mine that took 4 years to go through this process. Not the P&L component, but we were for a long time comparing every little different thing, and we were in the meeting, and ultimately every way we tried to slice the scenarios and different options, it was like 2%. It was in his case, it was 2 percentage points, right, on a $2.4 million business, something to that effect. It was 5 or 6 years ago, and the way I looked at that was, you need to look at that 2% difference, because picking up the 2% meant they have to do all the work, right? Meant they had to take all the responsibility. We were comparing the difference between going to an independent broker dealer versus starting your own RIA in that case, right? And it was a 2%, maybe 3% difference in pickup. But with that 3%, you have to do all the work, you have to do all the compliance, you have to manage all the technology, you have to take all the risk, right?
Time away from your clients.
Operating the business. And so the way I got them to see that 2 or 3% was that was a reinvestment back into their business, into time, in their time, so that they didn't have to focus on those things, where they can then go after their client, go after more clients, and grow the business and make more money. And that's the way they looked at it. And that's the way we go through these pro formas, so that you fully understand how you should be looking at things. There are too many, I'm having this conversation because there are too many people in our space, and I'm talking about our third-party recruiting space, that don't understand these things because they've never run a business, a real business, right? Someone that's a recruiter in their house, right, and they're by themselves, they don't understand what it's like to run a real business and go through the math with you. You need to be working with someone that's educated, that can educate you, because you only want to do this one time. And you want to make that decision the best possible decision you can, and you need to have the information at your fingertips. That's what we do. I'm saying this in the way I'm saying it because I get frustrated. Candidly, I've seen some pro formas from firms, and I'm not necessarily the bigger firms, right? But some of the smaller shops where I've had conversations with
they're over embellished.
That would be an understatement.
Okay.
Over embellished, unrealistic numbers to make it look good for you as an advisor to choose them. I've actually got into some real debates with these people, and actually offered to give them my spreadsheet to use so that they stop misleading financial advisors. My spreadsheet is really good. It's been honed through working with firms. The biggest players on the street that they provide, they have their pro formas. I've taken pieces of each one of them, combined them into one what I think is really good. I think it's really accurate.
Well, it's realistic because we take an unbiased view.
Right.
If you're receiving a pro forma from a specific firm, they have really a vested interest in having you come there. And not that we say we don't care where you go. Of course we care where you go, but we're coming at it from a very different viewpoint.
Right.
And that's really where the value of our pro forma exercise, that's what it is, the pro forma exercise, can add so much more clarity to what you want to do.
Yeah, look, I've seen pro formas where the firm has puts in $1,800 for real estate, and I'm like, that's not possible, right? Or they're putting $300 for utilities. That's not possible, right? And all of that stuff adds up. And there's times where we take out marketing or we add marketing in. We do a comparison, right? So what we love doing these things, which is why it's near and dear to my heart. I know we're getting off on a tangent here, but the reality is, if you're going through this process, I would recommend, once you get economic information on the firms, right? They don't all give it to you right away, but some of that stuff you can get. The sooner you can get the information from the firm on the economics of operating their business, and the sooner you can put that in a comparative analysis sooner in your process, the better off you're going to be. Because then you can make a decision understanding that, okay, these three firms are basically the same. Let's now put that piece of information to the side, and now let's focus on the other fundamental things that are going to make a bigger difference to the long-term growth of my company. If you want to have that conversation, I would love to have that conversation with you. You can shoot me an email at frank@eliteconsultingpartners.com. You can do the same thing for Stacey because she goes through them as well. What's your email?
Stacey at eliteconsultingpartners.com. Don't forget the E. But really, Frank, you had built, I call it a manipulating pro forma, probably 7-8 years ago. And today it's even more driven towards helping advisors
Yeah,
make the
it's
right
not manipulating
decision.
like in a negative way. What she means is what we
Right.
do and what our
Make
process
changes.
is. Right, we make changes and we can go in there. Right, it's not manipulating. Like, hey,
The good manipulating.
Yeah, I mean, look,
It's changeable.
The
It's
firm
changeable.
the firm that I was just talking about, the larger $10+ million firm, they're coming from a wirehouse firm, and we're going to go through the different scenarios of if they bring 80% of their clients, or what if they have a really bad scenario and they only bring 60% of their clients. My model, my performas can sort of show the outcome of those different results.
Right.
And then what if you grow at 10% versus 5%, right? Some firms claim, they grow at 8 or 9% a year. Well, you have to, so that's why if you have one firm that's showing you growth at 9 or 10%, and the other firm is showing you growth at 5%, you're looking at an apple and an orange when you're comparing a 10-year track record of performance. And that's where you have to pay attention. You have to understand what you're looking at.
Exactly.
And I consider myself an expert at it. So I'm not a CPA, I'm not an accountant, but I run a business, a multi-million dollar business, and I look at this stuff all the time, and I've been doing this for 30 years. So I probably know a little bit about what I'm talking about, just saying. Anyway, with that said, I would love to also know, post what your biggest takeaway is on this podcast, right? I would love to hear from you what your thoughts are on whether or not I'm making sense or not making sense. And then you can hashtag Advisor Talk Podcast and then stay in the conversation. I think that would be really good. And I look forward to keeping this conversation going because I think it's an exciting conversation that no one's talking about. So with that said, thanks for listening.
Thank
and
you.
I hope you enjoyed the show.
Thanks for listening to Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa. If you're looking for more advice or solutions on any topics relating to the financial services industry, or just want to subscribe to our podcast, head on over to eliteconsultingpartners.com/podcast.